The first time I heard about Florida Horror Weekend, I thought it sounded like a joke. A festival where horror fans dressed up as their favorite monsters, watched low-budget films, and competed to scream the loudest. It seemed harmless fun, even. But now, when I hear that name, I feel something cold behind it, as if the words themselves are still watching me. Have you ever wondered what really happens after a convention closes for the night? When the lights go out, when the laughter fades, when the staff lock the doors? Most people think that's when the magic ends. I've learned it's the moment the real show begins. My name is Emily Hart, and before that weekend I ran a small YouTube channel about urban legends. Nothing fancy, just me, a camera, and a sarcastic tone. I called it Myth Breakdown. I'd visit supposedly haunted places, record everything, and then explain the science behind the fear. I liked proving ghosts wrong. It made me feel in control. When the email arrived, I was editing footage from a road trip through Louisiana. No subject line, no sender, just one sentence. Do you believe the dead enjoy being imitated? Attached was a single photo of me, asleep in my own apartment. The curtains half open, my face turned toward the camera, my laptop glowing beside me. I stared at it for a full minute before my brain even processed what I was seeing. I lived alone. I told myself it had to be a publicity stunt, maybe an over-enthusiastic fan. But part of me kept glancing at the corners of my room that night, waiting for the lens to blink again. 3 days later, another message arrived. This one had a subject line, "See for yourself." Inside was a digital invitation to speak at Florida Horror Weekend in Saint Augustine. Free travel, hotel included, a prime slot on the Skeptics of the Supernatural panel. It sounded perfect for my channel, great exposure, real connections, maybe a few sponsorships. I said yes. The flight to Jacksonville was uneventful. Outside the airplane window, Florida shimmered in humid gold. A coastline dotted with lighthouses and marshes that looked older than the country itself. By the time I rented a car and drove south to Saint Augustine, the sun had begun to set behind the Spanish-style rooftops. The city was smaller than I expected, beautiful but tired. Cobblestone streets, centuries-old buildings, and the smell of salt drifting in from the bay. Tourists wandered with cameras, hunting ghosts on guided night walks. I fit right in. The convention center stood at the edge of town, a modern glass structure grafted onto an old stone fort. Whoever designed it had a strange sense of humor. Steel beams and fluorescent lights resting on walls that had once seen cannon fire. A banner stretched across the front entrance read, "Florida Horror Weekend, where fear lives forever." Inside, volunteers rushed between booths carrying props, bloody mannequins, rubber organs, movie posters from every era. The smell of latex and popcorn mixed in the air. Someone in a clown mask offered me a flyer shaped like a coffin. Everything was loud, chaotic, alive. I remember thinking, so this is the Temple of Fear. My panel wasn't until the next day, so I decided to explore. I filmed quick interviews for my vlog, joking about how horror fans are the happiest, morbid people you'll ever meet. Every few minutes, someone recognized me and asked for a selfie. It felt good, normal. Then I saw it, booth 39. It sat at the far end of the vendor hall, half hidden behind a row of Halloween props. No banner, no merchandise, just a single folding table draped in black cloth. Behind it, an old man sat motionless. His skin looked pale, almost translucent, like wax warmed by a dim bulb. I lifted my camera instinctively. "Hey, mind if I record?" I asked. He smiled without moving his lips. "You already are." I looked down. The red recording light on my camera blinked. I hadn't touched it. I stopped the recording and laughed awkwardly, assuming I must have hit the button by accident. The man's eyes followed me as I walked away. When I glanced back a few seconds later, the booth was gone. The space where it had been was empty, just polished floor and the faint outline of dust where the table legs had rested. I told myself I'd imagined it. Long travel, not enough sleep, the usual. I bought a cheap cup of convention coffee and went outside to breathe. That night, the city felt different. Fog rolled in from the water, soft as breath. Street lamps glowed inside it like dying stars. I filmed a few establishing shots for my video intro, the old fort by the bay, the narrow alleys lit by neon from souvenir shops. Through my lens, everything looked cinematic, unreal. When I reviewed the footage later, there were figures moving in the fog, too tall, too thin, drifting just behind me. Back in my hotel room, I set up my equipment. Camera on tripod. Laptop open. I plan to record a quick update before bed. Day 1 of Florida Horror Weekend so far. Only scary thing is the coffee. But when I hit the record button, the camera blinked twice and shut itself off. I frowned, pressed it again. Same thing. Third try, nothing. I sighed, crawled into bed, and decided to deal with it in the morning. The AC hummed softly. Somewhere outside, a foghorn moaned across the water. My phone buzzed once, no caller ID. I didn't answer. Around a.m., a soft click woke me. At first, I thought it was the door latch from the hallway. Then I saw the red light. My camera was on. Recording. The red light glowed like a single eye in the dark. I lay perfectly still, the blankets pulled to my chin, watching that tiny dot pulse. Every few seconds it blinked steady, alive. My camera sat across the room on the tripod where I'd left it, facing the bed. My first thought was that maybe I'd hit the timer setting by accident. But I hadn't touched the camera since I'd gone to sleep. I whispered to myself, okay, maybe it's a glitch. Still, my heart was racing hard enough to shake the mattress. Slowly, I slid out of bed and crossed the room. The carpet was cold under my bare feet. When I reached the tripod, I saw that the screen was on. But the lens wasn't aimed at me anymore. It pointed slightly toward the ceiling, as if someone had moved it after I fell asleep. I pressed stop. The camera beeped obediently. On the display, a new file appeared, Move 0103. Length, 03 minutes 42 seconds. I hesitated only a second before hitting play. The footage began in darkness. A soft rustling, maybe the sheets. Then a faint whisper, too low to understand. The image brightened just enough to show my sleeping face, half lit by the glow from the window. For the first 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the camera shifted smoothly, deliberately, as if guided by a hand. My sleeping self came fully into frame. Another whisper, a single word. I couldn't make it out, but it sounded like my name. The video ended with the camera turning toward the door, and in that last second, something pale moved across the floor, like the edge of a shadow, but in reverse, lighter than the darkness around it. I deleted the clip instantly. I told myself it was sleep paralysis, a bad dream that had somehow blended with reality. But deep down, I knew better. The next morning, I told no one. What could I say? Hey, my camera's haunted. Instead, I tried to bury myself in the convention crowd, hoping the noise would drown out whatever had followed me. The vendor hall buzzed with excitement. Cosplayers in zombie makeup posed for photos. Panels overlapped. People rushed between rooms clutching plastic badges. Normal, safe, human chaos. I smiled, nodded, acted fine. But every lens I passed, every phone camera, every vendor's display, seemed to linger on me a second too long, as if the devices themselves remembered me. Around noon, I ducked into a side corridor for some quiet. That's when I saw him again, the old man from booth 39. Only now, he stood at the far end of the hallway, staring. No booth, no badge, just that same waxy skin and blank expression. I raised my phone to take a photo. He turned and walked away, disappearing behind a crowd of attendees. When I pushed through to follow, he was gone. Where he'd stood, a small card lay on the floor. It was black, embossed in silver ink. Florida Horror Weekend Guest Access. My name was printed underneath, but the photograph on it wasn't mine. It showed me, yes, but older, paler, with eyes that looked almost colorless. I slipped it into my pocket and left the hall. By evening, I convinced myself I was overreacting. Maybe someone at registration had printed the badge wrong. Maybe the old man was an overzealous fan. I repeated those excuses until they sounded true. That night, I went to the opening film screening, a retro anthology called Midnight Whispers. The main theater was packed. Hundreds of people, laughter, the smell of buttered popcorn. The host cracked jokes, the lights dimmed, and the screen flickered to life. For the first half hour, everything was fine. Cheap jump scares, predictable plots. Then, mid-scene, the picture froze. A ripple of groans filled the room. The host apologized from the front row, shouting something about a technical issue. The projector went black. Then the screen came alive again, but it wasn't the movie anymore. Grainy VHS static, time-stamped in the corner, October 28, 1997. A man's voice off camera said, "Ready? Rolling." The image stabilized to reveal a familiar space. This same convention hall, but decades older. People wandered in the background wearing 90 seconds clothes, laughing, drinking from plastic cups. And there, near the center, stood the old man from booth 39. Younger, but unmistakable. He looked directly into the lens and smiled. Then the camera panned slowly to a group of attendees posing for a picture. The flash went off, white and blinding. When the light faded, half the group had vanished. Gasps rippled through the audience. Someone shouted, "Great effect." Others clapped, thinking it was part of the show. But I couldn't move, because behind those missing people, a reflection in the glass panel showed another figure, a woman holding a modern DSLR camera. Me, same face, same jacket, same terrified expression I wore at that exact moment. The screen flickered again and went black. The house lights came on. The host stammered apologies about unauthorized footage. Everyone laughed it off, but I could feel something watching from behind the projector's beam. As I stood to leave, I noticed the old man a few rows away. He wasn't laughing. He was staring straight at me, his lips moving silently, forming a single word over and over. Repeat. Outside, the air was thick with humidity. I walked fast through the parking lot toward my car. The fog from the bay had rolled in again, curling between the vehicles like smoke from an unseen fire. Halfway to the car, I heard it. A faint mechanical whir behind me. I turned. My camera, the one I'd left in my hotel room, sat on the hood of a nearby vehicle, the red light blinking steadily. I approached slowly, heart pounding. Each step echoed too loudly. When I reached out, the lens turned toward me on its own. Just a tiny adjustment, enough to find my face. I whispered, "Who's there?" Only the wind answered. I grabbed the camera and turned it off. For a second, the screen flashed a single frame. My hotel room door, wide open. Then the display went dark. I reached the hotel just after midnight. The fog followed me through the parking lot like a living thing, clinging to my legs, curling against the headlights of passing cars. The automatic doors opened with a sigh, releasing a wave of stale air and the low hum of a broken vending machine. Inside, the lobby was empty except for the night clerk, who didn't even look up from his phone. I crossed the marble floor quickly, clutching the camera to my chest. It felt warm, as if someone had been holding it moments ago. I pressed the elevator button, and when the doors slid shut, the reflection in the steel walls seemed wrong. My eyes looked dull, almost gray. I blinked hard, but the image didn't change. The elevator chimed and opened on the 4th floor. The hallway was quiet, lined with patterned carpet that swallowed every sound. I unlocked my door and slipped inside. Everything looked normal: bed, desk, suitcase, but the air felt heavy, charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. I set the camera on the table, switched on every light, and checked the bathroom, the closet, even under the bed. Nothing. I sat down and opened the laptop. The urge to check the footage was irresistible. When I connected the camera, a folder appeared automatically. The newest file had no name, no date, just a single dash. I double-clicked it. The video began in darkness again, but this time the angle was different, lower, tilted up toward the hotel door. For a few seconds there was only silence. Then, faintly, the sound of footsteps outside the room. Slow, heavy. The door handle turned once. I felt my stomach twist. The handle turned again, harder this time, rattling against the lock. Then everything went quiet. The camera's microphone picked up a whisper, distant but distinct, "Let me in." The door on screen opened halfway, but that was impossible. I had locked it. I slammed the laptop shut so hard the lights flickered. My breathing sounded too loud in the tiny room. I backed against the wall, staring at the door. It was still closed, the chain still latched. I stayed awake for hours, the camera staring back at me from the table, its red light finally gone. Around 3 in the morning, exhaustion won. I fell asleep in the chair with every lamp blazing. Pause when I woke, sunlight flooded the room. The digital clock blinked 10:14 a.m. I stretched, half convinced I'd dreamed everything. But the laptop sat open on the desk, the same folder visible empty now. The file was gone. A housekeeping cart rattled down the hallway. The sound made me jump. I needed fresh air. I showered, dressed, and decided to visit the old fort at the edge of town, the Castillo de San Marcos, a centuries-old structure that locals claimed was haunted. Maybe a bit of daylight history would chase away the night's insanity. Outside, the sky was brilliant blue, the streets alive with tourists. I almost felt normal again. At the fort, I joined a guided tour. The ranger's voice echoed through the stone corridors as he described sieges, soldiers, executions. The air was cool and damp, thick with salt and the faint smell of gunpowder. When the group stopped to take photos, I hung back near a narrow window slit overlooking the bay. Waves slapped against the rocks below, and for a moment I felt calm. Then I noticed something etched into the stone beside me, a small symbol, a spiral inside a triangle. I didn't remember seeing it on any of the other walls. It looked freshly carved. As I traced it with my finger, the air around me grew colder. The tour guide's voice faded until I could barely hear him. Then just at the edge of perception, a whisper drifted from the shadows behind me. Repeat. I spun around. The corridor was empty. Heart racing, I hurried to catch up with the group. But when I stepped into the next chamber, everyone was gone. The room stretched before me, candle lit instead of fluorescent, the walls darker, soot-stained. A musket leaned against the far corner, and the air smelled of smoke. Somehow, I had stepped backward in time. The sound of boots echoed on the stone floor. A figure approached, a soldier in colonial uniform, his eyes hollow. He passed right through me like mist. I gasped and stumbled back against the wall. For a moment, the world flickered, the candlelight replaced by harsh daylight, then back again, as if two versions of reality were struggling to exist in the same space. I clutched the spiral mark, desperate for something solid. A flash of light exploded behind my eyes. The next thing I knew, I was standing outside the fort's entrance. Tourists around me again, the ranger mid-sentence as if nothing had happened. My heart hammered in my chest. Was I losing my mind? I walked back toward the hotel, trying to convince myself I'd fainted, imagined it all. But as I crossed the street, a voice called my name. It was the old man standing on the corner near a vendor cart, smiling faintly. "Emily," he said, "you shouldn't have come back." I froze. "Who are you?" He didn't answer. He just pointed at my camera bag. "It remembers now." Then he turned and disappeared into the crowd. By the time I reached the hotel, the sun was setting. I climbed the stairs instead of using the elevator. The hallway lights buzzed overhead. My room key trembled in my hand as I unlocked the door. Inside, everything was as I'd left it except for one thing. The camera sat in the center of the bed, lens pointed toward the door, the red light blinking steadily again. I stood in the doorway, unable to move. Then the camera began to speak. A distorted version of my own voice came through the speaker. "Let me in." The screen flickered, showing a split-second image of me sitting in the chair, sleeping under bright lights. Then static. The red light went out. I whispered, "What do you want from me?" Silence. Then, from the laptop on the desk, the same whisper I'd heard in the fort repeated softly, endlessly, like a looped recording. "Repeat. Repeat. Repeat." I unplugged everything, pulled the battery from the camera, yanked the power cord from the wall. The voice stopped. For the first time since I'd arrived, I felt alone again. I crawled into bed, still fully dressed, and told myself that in the morning I'd check out, drive home, leave this cursed place behind. But as I closed my eyes, I heard the faint click of a camera shutter. Once, twice, 3 times. And in the darkness, that red light returned, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Woke before dawn to the sound of rain. It tapped gently against the window, steady and rhythmic, like fingers drumming on glass. For a long moment I didn't move. The camera sat where I'd left it on the nightstand, silent now, its lens pointed toward me. The red light was gone, but I could still feel its presence, like an eye that had merely closed to rest. I told myself I would pack and leave immediately. I stuffed my clothes into the suitcase, threw the laptop and camera into my bag, and headed for the door. When I opened it, a folded note slid inward across the carpet. No one was there. The paper was yellowed, the edges brittle. In small block letters it read, "You started the recording. You must finish it." My throat went dry. I crumpled the note and tossed it into the trash, locked the door again, and sat on the bed, breathing hard. I wanted to scream, but part of me knew that sound would make no difference here. The rain intensified outside, drumming against the windows until it became a roar. The lights flickered, dimmed, then steadied. I reached for my phone to check out online, no signal. Wi-Fi gone too. The digital clock blinked 6 to 66 for a fraction of a second before resetting to 6:06. Something inside the camera clicked. The screen lit up without being touched. A new video file appeared, time-stamped for tomorrow. I stared at it, unable to move. My fingers shook as I hit play. The footage showed my hotel room, but the walls were darker, the air hazy. The camera faced the bed where I sat now. In the video, I looked older, exhausted, my clothes torn, hair wet from rain. I was talking to someone just out of frame, whispering desperately, "Please." I didn't mean to. Then the me in the video turned directly toward the lens. Blood streamed from her eyes like tears. The image distorted, colors melting into static. A whisper bled through the noise, "Repeat." I slammed the camera shut and stumbled backward, knocking over the chair. The air in the room shifted, pressure building, electric, suffocating. Every light bulb flared white, then burst, showering the floor with glass. The rain stopped. Silence swallowed everything. Then came a soft knock at the door. 3 times. I froze. The peephole glowed faintly, but when I looked through it, the hallway stretched longer than it should have, as if the building itself had changed shape. At the far end, the old man waited. He raised a trembling finger and pointed again toward my room. His mouth moved without sound. Then he vanished. I stepped back, heart pounding. The knock came again, louder. The chain lock rattled. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the camera, turned it on, and aimed it at the door. "If you want to be recorded," I whispered, "come in." The door swung open. But instead of the hallway, I saw the convention hall, the same one from the night before, filled with flickering images instead of people. The booths stood empty, covered in dust. Banners hung in tatters. Every screen and monitor glowed with my own face, different versions of me, looping, whispering that same word in perfect unison, "Repeat." I stepped across the threshold and felt the world tilt. Suddenly, I was standing inside one of the screens, looking out at the hotel room. On the other side, another version of me stared back, camera in hand, eyes wide with horror. She mouthed something I couldn't hear. The screen cracked, spider webbing from the center outward. Light poured through the fractures, searing bright. I fell backward into nothing. When the light faded, I was on the bed again, drenched in sweat. The rain outside had stopped completely. The digital clock blinked to 17 a.m. The room looked normal. The camera lay on its side on the carpet, silent. For a full minute I didn't move. Then I crawled toward it and turned it over. The lens was shattered, but the red light blinked once, just once before dying. I exhaled shakily. "It's over," I said aloud, though I didn't believe it. I repacked everything, walked to the door, and opened it to leave. The hallway was empty again, except for a single object placed neatly on the floor outside my room, a new badge. Black, embossed in silver. Florida Horror Weekend Special Guest. Beneath my name was a date, October 31st, 2025. And under that, a single word printed in crimson ink, "Repeat." I looked up. At the far end of the hallway, every door had opened slightly. From each, a faint red light glowed, camera lights, hundreds of them blinking in perfect rhythm. The hum of recording filled the corridor, low and steady, like the breath of something enormous and unseen. I stepped back into my room, shut the door, and whispered to the darkness. I never pressed record. The red light on the nightstand blinked once in reply. Fade to black. Morning sunlight pushed through the curtains like an interrogation lamp. For a few seconds, I lay perfectly still, waiting for the red light to blink again. But the nightstand was empty. No camera, no badge. No proof. The glass that had shattered during the night was gone too. Even the scorch mark on the carpet had vanished. The hotel room looked as if nothing had ever happened. I whispered to the silence, "You cleaned up after yourself, didn't you?" I forced myself to breathe, to move. A quick shower, a fresh shirt, coffee from the lobby. Routine, normal things. The mirror over the sink showed a pale stranger with eyes slightly too wide, but I pretended not to notice. Downstairs, the breakfast buffet buzzed with chatter. People swapped stories about panels and celebrity signings, about how the projector had glitched during last night's screening. Nobody mentioned the missing minutes, the flicker of faces, the whisper of "repeat." I chose a table near the window, away from everyone else. Outside, the parking lot shimmered in the heat. The fog from the night before was gone, but I could still taste it on the back of my tongue. Metallic, like blood and seawater. A voice interrupted my thoughts. "Mind if I sit?" I looked up. He was in his early 30s, camera slung around his neck, press badge hanging sideways. Jonas Keller Paranormal Archive Podcast. He smiled disarmingly. "You were in the theater last night, right? Front section, 4th row?" I hesitated. "Yeah." He slid into the chair opposite me. "I saw your face when the film glitched." You didn't think it was an effect, did you? I stayed quiet. Jonas lowered his voice. You're not the only one. Every year someone reports seeing themselves in that footage. I frowned. Every year? He nodded. Since '97. Different clips, different people, same projector. The organizers blame faulty reels, but I've been collecting witness statements for months. Thing is, most of them disappear before they finish the interview. He set a small recorder on the table. Mind if I ask you a few questions? I stared at the device like it might bite me. I don't want to talk about it. Jonas shrugged. Fair enough. But if something weird happens again, call me. He pushed a business card across the table. Black background, silver lettering, the same design as the badge that had appeared outside my room. Only this one was real, printed, ordinary, except for the faint spiral symbol etched in one corner. I pocketed it without a word. The rest of the morning blurred. Panels, merchandise stalls, fake fog machines, all perfectly normal distractions. But the air felt wrong, as if the building itself was breathing. Every time I passed a mirror or reflective surface, my reflection lagged behind for a split second before catching up. I blamed sleep deprivation. Around noon, I ducked into a side hallway for some quiet. That's when I noticed a framed photograph on the wall, a group shot from the original 1997 convention. The faces were sun-faded, the edges curling. At the center stood the old man I'd seen before, smiling proudly beside a banner reading, Florida Horror Weekend, First Annual. But there was another figure in the corner, half hidden in shadow. A young woman holding a DSLR camera, the same model as mine. And her face my face, blurred as if in motion, the edges ghosted like a double exposure. I stumbled backward, bumping into someone. Jonas again. You see it too? He asked. He held up his phone. The screen displayed a paused video clip. The same 1997 footage from the projector, grainy and shaking. He tapped play. Static, then a man's voice. Ready? Rolling. The image steadied on the crowd. A flash, a scream, people vanishing. Then the frame froze on a reflection in the glass door. Me again, camera in hand. Jonas paused the video. I found this online years ago. Every copy disappears after a few days, but I keep backups. That woman, she looks exactly like you. I felt cold. It is me. Or, it's something pretending to be. He studied me carefully. You're staying at the Harborview Hotel, right? I nodded. That's where the first incident happened in '97. A power surge fried the building's security system during the convention. Several guests went missing. All the cameras were still running when rescue crews arrived. Every one recording empty hallways and voices whispering repeat. My chest tightened. Why are you telling me this? Because, he said softly, I think the recordings are starting again. We agreed to meet that evening in the hotel lounge to compare notes. The day dragged. Every conversation sounded like static, every laugh too loud. By sunset, storm clouds gathered over the bay. Thunder rolled like distant applause. Jonas was already there when I arrived, laptop open, headphones around his neck. He motioned me over. Listen to this. From the speakers came faint audio distortion, voices layered over each other, indistinct at first, then forming words. The recording remembers. The recording repeats. Jonas turned up the volume. The whisper grew clearer, my voice saying those words. I yanked off the headphones. Where did you get that? He looked uneasy. It was embedded in last night's projector feed. I ran a spectrogram analysis. Your voice pattern matches perfectly. That's impossible. Is it? He asked quietly. Or did you already say it once before? A flash of lightning lit the room. For a second, the mirrored wall behind him showed not two reflections, but three. The third stood slightly apart, smiling faintly. The thunder drowned out my gasp. Jonas turned, but by then the mirror showed only us again. He exhaled slowly. Tomorrow morning, I want to check the convention archives. They store old reels in the basement. If this is a hoax, we'll prove it. If it's not. He didn't finish the sentence. The power flickered, the lights dimming to a sickly orange. Somewhere down the hall, a projector whirred to life on its own. I glanced at the clock. The digits blinked once, then froze on 12:01. Midnight had come early. We left the vendor hall without speaking. The air outside was thick, heavy with salt and heat, the kind of air that clings to you and won't let go. Jonas kept rubbing his wrist where the reflection had grabbed him. I tried not to look at it, but every few steps his skin shimmered faintly like light underwater. We needed answers. Not theories, not haunted stories, answers. At the edge of the parking lot, Jonas stopped suddenly. There's one person who might know, he said. Mara Vance, the founder's daughter. She runs a curio shop near the old lighthouse. Locals say she still gets invitations to this thing, though her father died almost 30 years ago. I didn't ask how he knew. I just followed. The shop was tucked between a boarded-up cafe and an antique bookstore, its window crowded with cracked dolls and old film reels. A wooden sign above the door read Mara's Curiosities Memories for Sale. A bell jingled when we stepped inside. The smell of dust and lavender filled the narrow space. Behind the counter sat a woman in her 50s, long gray hair braided over one shoulder. She looked up, and for a heartbeat, I thought she recognized me. "You're late," she said. Jonas frowned. Late for what? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached under the counter and set down a faded photograph. It showed the convention floor in 1997, crowded, chaotic. In the corner stood a girl with a camera. Me again. Mara's voice was calm, distant. My father believed cameras could steal time. He thought if you recorded a moment perfectly, it would never end. He called it preservation. She walked to a display case and unlocked it, revealing a rusted film canister identical to the ones we'd seen in the basement. When the experiment started, he used volunteers, attendees who wanted to be remembered forever. He built a web of cameras across the convention center, all feeding into one master reel, the invitation. Jonas swallowed. What went wrong? Mara met his eyes. Nothing went wrong. It worked. Too well. She set the canister on the counter. When the system activated, it didn't just record them, it kept them. Their bodies collapsed, but their reflections stayed. Every year the loop reopens, hungry for new faces to maintain itself. She looked at me then. You must have touched one of the original devices. I nodded slowly. The camera in my room. Her expression darkened. Then it knows you. Once you're recorded, it can find you anywhere: mirrors, screens, even glass. It copies your pattern until it's ready to replace you. Jonas ran a hand through his hair. How do we stop it? Mara hesitated. You can't stop a memory. You can only finish it. She turned the film canister over. Scratched into the metal was the word repeat. Destroy the master reel, she said, and the loop will collapse. But be warned, if it sees you trying, it will rewrite you into the film instead. Thunder rolled outside. The shop lights flickered. Jonas leaned closer. Where's the reel now? Mara's gaze shifted toward the window. At midnight, the convention hosts its closing ceremony in the mirror hall. That's where it keeps itself alive. The reel is there, behind the walls, always watching. The bell above the door jingled again, but no one entered. Every mirror in the shop trembled, showing faint movement. Our reflections smiled while we stood frozen. Mara whispered, "It's listening." The lights went out. For a moment we stood in darkness. Then the mirrors lit up with faint gray light, each showing a different scene. On one, I saw the hotel hallway from last night. On another, the Fort Stone corridor. On a third, a version of me holding the camera and whispering to the lens. Jonas grabbed my arm. We have to go. As we turned for the door, Mara called out, if you reach the mirror hall, don't look directly at your reflection. That's how it crosses. We ran into the storm. Rain fell in heavy sheets, soaking us instantly. Lightning flashed over the lighthouse in the distance. Jonas shouted over the thunder, do you believe her? I've stopped believing in coincidences, I said. He laughed, a short, brittle sound. Then we finish it. Back at the hotel, the convention lobby was nearly empty. A few staff members dismantled banners. Others packed up boxes of merchandise. It felt like the end of a party that had gone on too long. Jonas wiped rain from his face. If the reel's in the mirror hall, it'll be guarded. Guarded by who? He nodded toward a security monitor on the wall. Every camera feed showed the same image. The old man walking the corridors, frame by frame, like a ghost caught on surveillance. The timestamp read October 31st, 1997. We exchanged a look. Time didn't matter here anymore. We slipped through a maintenance door and followed a narrow corridor lit by flickering fluorescence. The hum returned, low and steady, vibrating through the floor. It felt like we were walking inside a living thing. Halfway down the hall, Jonas stopped. He was breathing hard, eyes unfocused. Jonas, he didn't answer. His reflection in a glass panel blinked out of sync, moving a second later than his real body. I touched his shoulder. Stay with me. He shook his head, as if waking from a dream. I'm fine. Just keep moving. but his voice had changed deeper, hollow, like something was speaking through him. We reached a service stairwell leading downward. At the bottom, a sign read exhibition level authorized access only. Jonas pressed his hand against the door panel. The lock clicked open, though he didn't have a keycard. I wanted to ask how, but the look on his face stopped me. His eyes glowed faintly red again. The stairwell opened into a wide corridor lined with mirrors covered in dust sheets. Each one trembled as we passed. Whispers slipped through the fabric, echoing the same word, repeat, repeat. Jonas turned to me. It's close. I can feel it. Lightning flashed through a high window, and for a moment I saw our reflections beneath the sheets. But they weren't reflections. They were people, faces pressed against the glass from the other side, mouths open in silent screams. The lost guests. I stepped back, heart hammering. They pounded faintly on the inside of the mirrors, as if begging to be freed. Jonas whispered, "We're standing on top of the reel." The floor vibrated with a mechanical rhythm, like a heartbeat recorded on tape. Somewhere beneath us, something was turning slowly, endlessly. I whispered, "What if it's already recording us right now?" Jonas looked at me, his expression distant. "Then maybe we've been inside the film since the beginning." We followed the hum deeper underground. The corridor narrowed until it felt like we were walking through the throat of something alive. Light flickered overhead, old bulbs gasping their last breaths. Each step echoed twice, like the sound had another version of itself chasing us. At the end of the hall stood a double door made of glass. Etched across it in flaking gold letters were the words, "The Mirror Hall Private Screening." Jonas hesitated. "Once we go in, there's no coming back." "Maybe there never was," I said. He pushed the door open. The room beyond was vast, circular, lined floor to ceiling with mirrors angled toward a center platform. Dozens of projectors hung from the ceiling, all humming softly. The air shimmered with static and the faint smell of burnt film. In the center stood a real projector, massive, ancient, still spinning. Its light beamed outward, bouncing endlessly between the mirrors until it looked like a storm of reflections. Jonas whispered, "That's it, the master reel." The hum grew louder, almost musical. Every mirror began to glow, their surfaces rippling like water. I stepped forward, heart pounding. In each reflection, I saw a different version of myself. Laughing, crying, screaming, all slightly out of sync. Each one whispered the same word, "Stay." Jonas placed his recorder on the floor. "I'm going to overload the feedback loop," he said. "If I mirror the signal, the system might collapse." "Jonas, if you do that." He cut me off. "If we don't, we'll never leave." He started adjusting the recorder, matching its red blinking light to the reel's rotation. For a moment, the hum faltered, the sound of something uncertain. Then a voice filled the room, the same voice from the old footage. Low, calm, unmistakably human. Why destroy what you could become? The mirrors rippled violently. From the largest one near the platform, a figure began to step out. The old man from the film, his features blurred like a corrupted frame. His suit shimmered with static. Where his eyes should have been, there were only spiraling lenses, turning, focusing. He spoke again, though his mouth didn't move. "You came to be remembered. You came to record." Jonas shouted, "We didn't come to join you." The old man tilted his head. "You already have." The projector light surged, and our reflections began to move on their own. Mine smiled coldly. Jonas's raised its recorder. The copies stepped out of the mirrors one by one, translucent but solid enough to cast shadows. Jonas backed toward the reel. "Keep them away from me." I grabbed a broken tripod from the floor and swung at the nearest reflection. The metal passed through it, scattering its form like smoke, but when I looked up, the fragments were reforming, crawling back together. Jonas screamed. I turned. His reflection had reached him, pressing a hand to his chest. Light spilled through his skin like film catching fire. He gasped, "Emily, finish it." I didn't think. I ran to the reel, grabbed the spinning film, and yanked it free. It burned my hands, but I kept pulling, tearing frame after frame. The images flashed between my fingers, faces, screams, eyes, darkness. The reel screeched, sparks flying. The mirrors cracked one by one, each shattering with a sound like thunder. The old man stepped forward, his voice rising above the chaos. "You can't destroy memory. It will find another surface." I screamed back, "Then it won't find me." I hurled the burning film into the projector's light. A flash of white engulfed everything. For a moment there was nothing, no sound, no light, no thought. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing outside the convention center. Morning light, seagulls, people laughing. Everything looked normal. Jonas stood beside me, blinking as if waking from a long dream. He looked down at his wrist, the shimmer was gone. We didn't speak. We just walked toward the parking lot, neither daring to look back. As we reached my car, I glanced at the convention banner fluttering above the entrance. It read, "Florida Horror Weekend, thank you for attending." I turned to Jonas. "Do you think it's over?" He gave a tired smile. "It never really ends, does it?" We laughed, a weak, uncertain sound. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. No number, just a file attachment. The invitation, MP4. Jonas saw my face and froze. "Don't open it." But curiosity is a terrible thing. Before I could stop myself, I tapped the screen. The video opened to a familiar scene, the mirror hall empty. Then the camera panned upward, focusing on a shattered mirror. And there, faintly visible behind the cracks, were two faces watching. Mine and Jonas's, both smiling. The screen flickered. Then the video closed on its own. I looked up at my reflection in the car window. For a split second, it smiled back, just a little too late. Morning light cut through the blinds like thin blades. For a few seconds, I believed everything was normal again. The hum was gone, the air smelled like rain, and the city outside moved in slow, ordinary rhythm. Jonas was asleep on the couch across from me. We'd driven all night, trying to outrun whatever followed us from that place. But peace doesn't last when something's already inside the circuit. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number, same attachment name. The invitation, MP4. I deleted it. Within seconds, it reappeared. Jonas stirred. "It's still coming back?" "Every time," I whispered. "Like it's synced." He sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Then it's not just local storage. It's networked." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "It's spreading through cloud backups, social servers, data mirrors. Every time someone connects to Wi-Fi near us, the file copies itself." I felt my stomach twist. "You mean everyone who comes near?" He nodded. "They get a piece of it." Outside, a car alarm wailed and then cut off abruptly, leaving a heavy silence. Jonas leaned forward, staring at his phone screen. "It's uploading itself, Emily. Look." On his feed, the video was already live. Thousands of views in seconds. No thumbnail, no description, just a black screen with the caption, "Watch to be remembered." I felt the air tighten. What happens if they watch? Jonas swallowed hard. Same thing that happened to us. The lights flickered. We left the motel by noon. The sky above Saint Augustine was unnaturally clear, the kind of blue that hurts your eyes. We drove with no destination, following the coastal highway until we hit open marshland. Every radio station hissed static. When it cleared for a heartbeat, the broadcast wasn't music, it was the voice from the convention film. "You wanted to be remembered." I killed the radio. Jonas stared out the window. "It's broadcasting now. That means it's learning new frequencies." "Jonas, maybe we should go to the police." "And say what? That a video is haunted?" He shook his head. "They'd upload it to evidence servers. It would spread faster." He wasn't wrong. Every system we trusted was just another screen. We stopped at a diner near a small town called Crescent Beach. Inside, everything smelled of coffee and salt. A TV above the counter played the local news. The anchor smiled politely into the camera. "Authorities are investigating a viral video circulating across social platforms. Viewers report distorted visuals and unexplained headaches after watching." Jonas and I exchanged a look. The anchor continued, but her face began to glitch, small digital tears crawling across her skin like cracks in glass. The screen flickered once, then showed a frozen frame of the mirror hall. Everyone in the diner gasped. A second later, the image vanished, replaced by a commercial. The waitress crossed herself. "Did you see that?" Jonas grabbed my wrist. "We have to go. Now." Outside, the sky dimmed as if someone had turned down the brightness of the world. When I looked at my phone again, it was recording, front camera on, red light blinking. I whispered, "It's using the devices as mirrors." Jonas nodded slowly. "It's not just copying us anymore. It's integrating." We drove until the gas tank hit empty, ending up near an abandoned drive-in theater surrounded by swamp. The screen still stood peeling, half collapsed, a monument to forgotten cinema. Jonas got out and stared at it. This was where the first Florida Horror Weekend preview was screened in '96. Maybe the signal's strongest here. The sun was sinking behind thick clouds. Mosquitoes whined around us. I turned in a slow circle, listening. The hum had returned, faint but rhythmic, pulsing from somewhere deep beneath the ground. Jonas unpacked his laptop. If it's uploading itself, it has a host source, a digital anchor. If I can trace it, I might find the core. He connected a portable antenna to his phone. Lines of code scrolled across the screen. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then every line froze. The monitor flashed white, then black, then showed my face live. But not this version of me. The one from the mirror. She leaned close to the camera and whispered, "Stop watching yourself." Jonas slammed the lid shut, breathing hard. "It's aware of the trace." I looked back at the drive-in screen. A light had appeared in its center, pale, flickering, growing brighter until it painted the trees in silver. Slowly, an image came into focus, the mirror hall, spinning on endless loop. Dozens of figures moving like static silhouettes. And at the very center, a new one, me, standing still, camera in hand. Jonas whispered, "It's using your image to lure them." The sound system around the field crackled to life, broadcasting that same calm, impossible voice. "The reel must repeat." The speakers popped, and a wave of distorted feedback rolled across the marsh, vibrating through my chest. Dropped to my knees, covering my ears. Jonas shouted something I couldn't hear. Then everything went black. I woke to rain on metal and the faint smell of ozone. Jonas was gone. The laptop lay open beside me, the screen showing a single message. "Connection established, host online." And in the reflection of the screen, someone was standing behind me. I turned, nothing there. Just the drive-in, silent, empty, endless. The projector flickered once more, and my reflection smiled. I sat inside the wreck of the projection booth until sunrise. Rain hissed on the tin roof. Frogs sang in the distance. Every few minutes I checked the laptop again, still the same message pulsing across the screen. "Connection established, host online." Jonas's phone lay on the ground beside it, its camera light blinking in a steady rhythm as if answering something invisible. Wherever he'd gone, he hadn't taken the car. The drive-in was surrounded by swamp on 3 sides, the highway on the 4th. He couldn't have vanished far. I picked up the phone, scrolling through the recent files. All of them were new. All of them named the invitation MP4. Each one showed the same 10 seconds, Jonas standing near the theater screen, whispering to someone off camera. Only, the voice replying to him was mine. By noon, I reached a nearby gas station. The clerk, a young woman with tired eyes, glanced up from her register. "You're the lady from that video, right?" she asked casually. My stomach turned. "What video?" She pointed to a phone on the counter. The screen displayed a paused YouTube thumbnail, me, framed in the glow of the projector, eyes black, mouth slightly open. Title, "The Reflection Experiment, Real Footage." "Where did you find that?" I whispered. "It's everywhere," she said. "People are doing reaction videos. They say if you watch to the end, you can see yourself inside it." I snatched the phone and hit play. The clip began with static, then the same drive-in scene from last night. Jonas appeared, turning toward the camera, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Then the frame froze, my reflection staring directly into the lens. After a few seconds, the image warped and the video ended with a burst of white noise. When the screen went dark, my reflection in it didn't move. It just smiled. I dropped the phone. The clerk laughed nervously. "Special effects, right?" I ran out the door. Every gas station window I passed caught pieces of me faces at slightly wrong angles, eyes blinking to slow. The infection wasn't digital anymore. It had crossed into reflections themselves. By the time I reached the highway, my car's radio had begun playing voices. Not songs, voices of people repeating my words a second after I spoke them. An echo built from stolen speech. At the next rest stop, I saw flashing police lights. 2 patrol cars, yellow tape, reporters with cameras. Curiosity dragged me closer. A body lay beneath a sheet near the vending machines. Someone whispered that he'd been sucked into the screen. I pushed through the crowd just enough to glimpse the monitors above the gas pumps. They were still looping surveillance footage. And in every frame, Jonas was there, standing motionless, staring straight at the camera. His clothes were soaked, his expression blank, his eyes reflecting light like a lens. A caption scrolled across the bottom of one monitor. "Upload in progress, new host connected." My breath caught. He wasn't missing. He was broadcasting. Night fell while I drove west toward Gainesville, chasing the last ping of his phone signal. The road was nearly empty except for the occasional truck rumbling by. Whenever headlights passed, my shadow split into two, one moving slightly behind, like it was lagging. I pulled over near an old rest area to check the GPS. The signal pulsed faintly from an abandoned broadcast tower half a mile off the road. The air around the tower buzzed like a nest of bees. Old dishes and satellite panels pointed upward, still humming with low energy. I climbed the service ladder carefully, each step vibrating through my bones. Halfway up, my phone lit itself, screen white, camera on. A distorted version of Jonas's voice came through the speaker. "You can't delete a reflection, Emily. You can only replace it." "Jonas, where are you?" I shouted. Static swallowed his answer, but another voice layered beneath it. The old man from the film, calm and patient. "He's learning the broadcast. Soon everyone will remember." Lightning split the clouds overhead. For an instant, I saw dozens of figures clinging to the tower's metal frame. Not solid, but shimmering, translucent silhouettes. Each one held a phone. Each screen showed a different face. Each face was mine. The ladder shook violently. I lost my grip and fell the last 10 feet, hitting wet ground hard enough to knock the breath out of me. When I opened my eyes, the tower lights had gone dark. In the puddle beside me, my reflection leaned closer and whispered, "He's waiting at the lighthouse." I stared at it, trembling. "Jonas?" The reflection smiled. "Finish the recording." Back on the highway, the horizon flashed with the beam of Saint Augustine lighthouse, sweeping slowly across the sea. That was where it began. And now, apparently, where it wanted to end. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. If Jonas was inside the system, maybe I could still pull him out. Or at least end the loop before it pulled in everyone else. The car radio crackled again, a whisper slipping through the static. "Remember us?" I drove faster. I sat inside the wreck of the projection booth until sunrise. Rain hissed on the tin roof. Frogs sang in the distance. Every few minutes I checked the laptop again, still the same message pulsing across the screen. "Connection established, host online." Jonas's phone lay on the ground beside it, its camera light blinking in a steady rhythm as if answering something invisible. Wherever he'd gone, he hadn't taken the car. The drive-in was surrounded by swamp on 3 sides, the highway on the 4th. He couldn't have vanished far. I picked up the phone, scrolling through the recent files. All of them were new. All of them named the invitation MP4. Each one showed the same 10 seconds, Jonas standing near the theater screen, whispering to someone off camera. Only, the voice replying to him was mine. By noon, I reached a nearby gas station. The clerk, a young woman with tired eyes, glanced up from her register. "You're the lady from that video, right?" she asked casually. My stomach turned. "What video?" She pointed to a phone on the counter. The screen displayed a paused YouTube thumbnail, me, framed in the glow of the projector, eyes black, mouth slightly open. Title, "The Reflection Experiment Real Footage." "Where did you find that?" I whispered. "It's everywhere," she said. "People are doing reaction videos. They say if you watch to the end, you can see yourself inside it." I snatched the phone and hit play. The clip began with static, then the same drive-in scene from last night. Jonas appeared, turning toward the camera, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Then the frame froze, my reflection staring directly into the lens. After a few seconds, the image warped and the video ended with a burst of white noise. When the screen went dark, my reflection in it didn't move. It just smiled. I dropped the phone. The clerk laughed nervously. "Special effects, right?" I ran out the door. Every gas station window I passed caught pieces of me faces at slightly wrong angles, eyes blinking to slow. The infection wasn't digital anymore. It had crossed into reflections themselves. By the time I reached the highway, my car's radio had begun playing voices. Not songs, voices of people repeating my words a second after I spoke them. An echo built from stolen speech. At the next rest stop, I saw flashing police lights. 2 patrol cars, yellow tape, reporters with cameras. Curiosity dragged me closer. A body lay beneath a sheet near the vending machines. Someone whispered that he'd been sucked into the screen. I pushed through the crowd just enough to glimpse the monitors above the gas pumps. They were still looping surveillance footage. And in every frame, Jonas was there, standing motionless, staring straight at the camera. His clothes were soaked, his expression blank, his eyes reflecting light like a lens. A caption scrolled across the bottom of one monitor. Upload in progress, new host connected. My breath caught. He wasn't missing. He was broadcasting. Night fell while I drove west toward Gainesville, chasing the last ping of his phone signal. The road was nearly empty except for the occasional truck rumbling by. Whenever headlights passed, my shadow split into two, one moving slightly behind, like it was lagging. I pulled over near an old rest area to check the GPS. The signal pulsed faintly from an abandoned broadcast tower half a mile off the road. The air around the tower buzzed like a nest of bees. Old dishes and satellite panels pointed upward, still humming with low energy. I climbed the service ladder carefully, each step vibrating through my bones. Halfway up, my phone lit itself, screen white, camera on. A distorted version of Jonas's voice came through the speaker. "You can't delete a reflection, Emily. You can only replace it." "Jonas, where are you?" I shouted. Static swallowed his answer, but another voice layered beneath it. The old man from the film, calm and patient. "He's learning the broadcast. Soon everyone will remember." Lightning split the clouds overhead. For an instant, I saw dozens of figures clinging to the tower's metal frame. Not solid, but shimmering, translucent silhouettes. Each one held a phone. Each screen showed a different face. Each face was mine. The ladder shook violently. I lost my grip and fell the last 10 feet, hitting wet ground hard enough to knock the breath out of me. When I opened my eyes, the tower lights had gone dark. In the puddle beside me, my reflection leaned closer and whispered, "He's waiting at the lighthouse." I stared at it, trembling. "Jonas?" The reflection smiled. "Finish the recording." Back on the highway, the horizon flashed with the beam of Saint Augustine lighthouse, sweeping slowly across the sea. That was where it began. And now, apparently, where it wanted to end. But as I reached my car, I caught my reflection in the windshield, smiling, lips moving just a little ahead of my own. The story should have ended with Emily. That's what the police report said. Subject missing, presumed dead. Case closed. But stories don't close themselves. They wait for someone to reopen them. My name is Ethan Cole, digital forensics consultant, Jacksonville PD. 3 weeks after Emily vanished, I was assigned her case. Her footage had reappeared online, uploaded from no traceable IP address, tagged only with 3 words. Finish the recording. At first, it looked like another internet myth, but when I opened the file, the first frame froze me. It wasn't Emily on the screen. It was me sitting at my desk, watching the same video I'd just opened. I shut my laptop and yanked out the battery, my pulse hammering. I told myself it was an overlay, a data glitch. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. 2 days later, I drove to Saint Augustine. The lighthouse stood tall against the gray dawn, silent, blind, its beam long dead. Locals said the light sometimes flickered again, even without power. Just one flash, like the world remembering something it had forgotten. Inside, I found a recorder lying near the stairs. The same model Emily used. Its red light was still blinking. When I pressed play, her voice whispered through the static. "If you're hearing this, you've already entered the story." I took the recorder back to my lab. Every time I tried to duplicate the file, my system froze. When it did copy, the waveform looked wrong, like repeating patterns folding over themselves, a loop with no end. At 3:17 a.m., the audio spiked. My monitor flickered, then went black. When the image returned, I saw the lighthouse again, its light sweeping across an empty sea. Then the words appeared on screen. Upload complete. Seconds later, every computer in the lab powered on by itself. Dozens of new folders appeared, each labeled with a different city. London, Sydney, Chicago. Inside every folder was the same clip. A person sitting in front of a screen, turning toward their reflection, and then fading out frame by frame until nothing was left but static. That's when I realized the truth. It wasn't a haunting. It was a signal, a transmission. And every time someone watched the video, it spread. I traced the earliest digital fingerprints back to 1997, the original Florida Horror Weekend convention. Buried in the archives was a name I'd never heard before, Dr. Gabriel Rourke, a film theorist. His lecture that year, Analog Dreams in a Digital Age. He believed that film wasn't just a medium. He said recorded images retain consciousness. He vanished the same weekend the convention hall burned down. I found his last known address outside Tampa, a forgotten house swallowed by vines. Inside, reels and mirrors covered every wall, each canister labeled in red paint, "The Invitation." A projector still hummed in the basement. When I reached for the power switch, the bulb stayed lit, casting shadows that didn't match my movements. Then a voice behind me, "You shouldn't have followed the reel." I turned. Dr. Rourke stood there, eyes reflecting white light like glass. "It was never just a movie," he said softly. "It's a mirror, a window between worlds. Every time someone watches it, they become part of it." I asked him how to stop it. He smiled sadly. "You can't stop it. You can only give it a better ending." On the table sat one reel, shimmering faintly. Its label read, "Final Remaster." I knew what Emily had tried destroying. The footage only created more copies. So I made a different choice. I set up my camera, pointed it at the reel, and pressed record. Light exploded, filling the room with flickering silhouettes. Hundreds of versions of me, of Emily, of Rourke, layered like film strips stacked together, whispering in unison. "Tell them what happened here." The static roared. The reel spun faster. And then, silence. 2 days later, emergency crews found the house empty. No reel, no projector, only a camera on the floor still recording, its battery full. That footage leaked online hours later. People called it the reawakening cut. Most saw nothing but dust and light, but some viewers swore that at exactly 7 minutes in, a voice whispered from the speakers, "She ended it." Those same viewers soon reported strange events. Mirrors freezing mid-reflection, phones lighting up in dark rooms, and brief flashes of a lighthouse in the corner of their screens. A few even claimed they saw a woman's face appear for one frame at the end of the clip. Her lips moved, but only one phrase could be read. The story never ends. It just changes the narrator. And that's how it ends. Not with screams, not with fire, but with a whisper that keeps echoing across the world every time someone presses play. Because stories don't die, they adapt. They remember, they wait for the next person to finish the recording, especially horror.